Another range-bound session sees the Nifty and Sensex end with cuts of nearly 0.5%. The Nifty gives up 25,200 but holds 25,100 on expiry day. Mid-caps do mildly better. The banks and IT stocks fall the most.
Analysts are split over Tech Mahindra, with some negative on the stock over the growth outlook, while others believe the management can meet their targets. The stock sulks as revenue misses estimates. Newton Software also reports its Q1 FY26 numbers. The stock skids over a weak revenue growth and margin contraction.
Sona BLW likely to be in talks with global EV giant BYD for supply of EV components. Sources tell CNBC TV18. Stock rallies in trade. Dinesh Khara chaired committee in its report advises the insurance regulator against merging insurers with non-insurers. The committee flags risks to policyholders to back its view. That too is a CNBC TV18 exclusive. Well, after a couple of days of grinding higher, the market is consolidating lower. Good evening. You're watching us here on Markets Forward, the go-to show where we get you all the key data points to get up for the next trading day while recapping today's trading day as well. I'm Mangalam Malu, with me, Vinny Motiwala. Vinny, a 100-point downtick on the Nifty is what we saw. The street was expecting a range-bound expiry, but today it was the lower end of the range as against the higher end.
Absolutely, Mangalam. I think every time we are just stuck in this range, We talk about this range, but yes, today it's the lower end of the range is what we're talking about. And good evening to you as well, Mangalam. Obviously, we have all covered in the next 20 minutes about the markets. That's the developments we've seen on the D Street today. We'll talk about the top corporate voices, events to watch out for. We'll set you up for trade tomorrow as well. And like you were mentioning, Mangalam, a range-bound trading session is what we're watching out for. But in terms of the broader end of the market, that also slipped in trade in the second half of the day as well. So yes, we're seeing the Nifty mid and small cap also seeing some bit of a pressure coming in today, while among the top sectoral gainers, realty was gaining in trade and dragged by IT sector. So that's pressure coming in because a lot of IT earnings also coming out.
It seems like the Nifty has decided to follow the direction of the IT stocks, because over the last few trading sessions, we had the Nifty Bank, which was outperforming, and that continued to support the frontline index. But the last two trading sessions, the IT stocks actually had shown signs of life, had perked up, and that supported the Nifty's bounce back as well, even as the banks were doing well. Today, unfortunately, neither the IT stocks nor the banks actually supported the cause of the frontline index. So to that extent, the fact that the Nifty held on to that 25,100 mark speaks about the resilience. The story of the day can actually be summed up by the intraday chart of the crisscross lines as well. If you look at, the advanced decline lines, for most part of today's trading session, the green line was above the red line, and thereafter, as we moved, the green line moved below the red line, and we had 1,400 stocks which declined for about 1,200 stocks which were advancing. But let's talk about the movers and shakers. Vivek joins us to tell us what moved and what shook. Vivek.
Well, that's right. Well, if you look at the benchmark indices, it appears as though it was mostly in the red, but there were some individual stocks, and in fact, it was a very stock-specific market where you did see a lot of action, a lot of volumes come about. Top amongst the list of gainers has to be one from the broader end of the markets. The mid-cap index top gainer was Thermax, one of now Kotak Institutional Equity says there's a strong case for the company's EPS to grow at almost 20% CAGR from FY25 to FY28. Street clearly listened, almost 7% higher on good volumes. The other stock on the radar was a stock that moved after CNBC TV18 exclusive. Sona BLW ended higher by over 6.5%. Sources tell us that the company could be in talks with Chinese EV giant BYD for supply of EV components. The other stock, and one stock that's been doing well throughout this particular week, is actually Patanjali Food. Now, this particular stock, in this particular week itself has seen significant up move. It'll be interesting to see whether there are any developments on this particular name. And one stock from the wire and cable space, RR Kabel. Now, one of the top gainers as far as the NSE 500 space was concerned, almost 5% higher in the session today. On the other hand, amongst the list of laggards, Techem muted set of results. Stock, in fact, saw selling pressure intensify in the last hour. Max Financial Services, on the back of a news break by our colleague, that indicated that the IRDAI recommended panel is not in favor of allowing merger between insurers and non-insurance. This particular stock, Max Financial, took a knock in the trading session. Different stocks, quite a few of them cooled off, top amongst them being Bharat Dynamics, that particular stock almost 3.5% lower. And lastly, Heritage Foods, numbers came in towards the last hour of the trading session. That stock cooled off after a muted Q1.
Okay, Vivek, thank you so much for that. A lot of action also happening because of earnings that we're seeing coming in as well. But let's go across to our guests for today. We have Ambareesh Baliga, independent market expert, as well as Ruchit Jain of Motilal Oswal Financial Services joining in with us. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining with us on the show. Ruchit, in terms of levels that we should keep an eye out on for the market, right? Range-bound trading or, ending at the lower end of the range is what we understand is happening right now. Now, what should we be watching out for?
Yeah, hi, very good afternoon, Vinny. Good afternoon to everyone. Well, I think what we have seen in this calendar month, that is in last 20 days, has been more of a time-wise correction within an uptrend. And generally, whenever you see markets going through some time-wise corrective phase, the 40 or the 50-day exponential moving average usually acts as a support. And that is placed somewhere in the range of 25,000 to 24,900. So yes, it's a more of a consolidation phase which is going on in the market. If you look at the market breadth, the kind of decline that we saw on the indices with Bank Nifty down by 300 points, Nifty IT index down by 500 points, Nifty down by 100, but still the market bet was not completely in favor of the declines. So this clearly indicates somewhat a consolidation happening in the market, and that could continue for a while. But on the levels wise, 25,000 to 24,900, this will be the crucial support to watch out for.
All right, that's a crucial support to watch out for. Ambareesh, from the numbers that have come so far, it's clear that the IT sector is still not out of the woods. We saw some signs of life, but, that's just a dead cat bounce, so to say.
Yeah, Mangalam, I think the best sort of results which we've seen are more or less in line, and most of the others have disappointed. So clearly, I think, the interest in IT stocks will not remain at least for a while. In fact, I'm suggesting that one should wait for possibly the next 1 or 2 quarters unless we start seeing those green shoots. It doesn't make sense buying into IT space at this point of time. Yes, we may have to possibly buy at slightly higher levels, but then that's worth the wait.
Okay, that's worth the wait is what we're watching out for in terms of ITs. But now let's move on to a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. And as per our sources, Sona BLW is in advanced talks with the Chinese electric vehicle maker, that is manufacturer BYD, to supply EV components. Vivek is joining in with us to give us more details on this one now. Vivek, over to you again.
Well, thank you so much for that. Along with our colleague Parikshit, from Delhi, what we learned from our sources that Sona BLW, one of the largest manufacturers, especially as far as the auto ancillary space is concerned, and a very important supplier to Tesla as well. Now, we understand that the company is looking to diversify, its supply base or its client base in that particular segment, and we understand that the company is in advanced talks with BYD to go ahead and supply EV components. We understand that these talks have been ongoing for the past few months, and we understand that the talks are now at a very advanced stage. Final details as well as the contract value is something that is still awaited. Along with that, an important development, something that will provide long-term visibility as far as Sona is concerned, is the fact that the company is also looking at setting up a local component manufacturing plant in China. Remember, the company will have to partner with the Chinese company for the same, and this is something that will ensure that Sona will become part of a long-term roadmap for collaboration between BYD as well as itself. We reached out to Sona Comstar. In the middle of the day, the company did give us a response saying that they were in talks with both domestic as well as global companies. They said that at this point of time, there are no definitive agreements or there are no definite announcements that the company has to disclose to the exchanges as well. But this is an important development and something that will keep Sona in the spotlight for now.
All right. Thanks a lot for that, Vivek, and congratulations on breaking that exclusive story from one exclusive to another. Let's talk about IRDAI-appointed committee, which is led by Dinesh Khara. He advised the insurance regulator to, not merge insurers with non-insurers. Why is that? Because there is a potential risk to policyholders if mergers are allowed. Yash brought us this story this morning. Yash, tell us more.
Well, Mangalam, a quick context before I actually, help us understand the substance of it. A few months ago, the government had come out with certain proposals with respect to Insurance Act amendment. One of the proposal was to get views on the fact that whether insurance companies and non-insurance companies can be allowed to have a merger or an amalgamation or not. This is what the government has sought views on, after which the insurance regulator IRDAI had formed a committee, and the committee was tasked with the responsibility of providing its views as far as these amendments and proposals are concerned. It had representation from various members and was chaired by Dinesh Khara, the former chairman of the State Bank of India. Now, what we've been given to understand from our sources is that the committee has submitted a confidential report with the insurance regulator IRDAI, and as per that report on this point of whether the merger or amalgamation should be allowed or not, the committee is of the view that the merger between an insurance and a non-insurance company should not be allowed, and that's because the kind of risks which the non-insurance entity would carry on its books, and that could come on the policy holders of the insurance company. This is the view which has been submitted, and it's particularly negative for Max Financial Services because Max Financial Services have been working on a reverse merger of Max Life into itself and have Max Life directly listed on the exchanges. And now, if this indeed becomes a part of the regulation, that is the committee recommendation, then the approval for Max Financial Services will become difficult and uncertain. Since the proposal came from the government, the holding company discount between Max Financial and Max Life narrowed to almost negligible from about 20%. But now with that uncertainty, there's always a possibility that holding company discount could re-emerge.
All right, take that point, Yash. Thank you so much for that. So that's about a couple of exclusive. Ambareesh, your thoughts on Sona BLW and its likely deal with BYD? I mean, obviously, a company that has 35% of its revenues coming in from electric vehicles would not pass on the opportunity of supplying to one of the larger players in the world right now.
Absolutely, Mangalam. 35% of the revenue, but if you look at the order book position, 80% is EVs. So I think supply to BYD is more or less sure. I think it's only a question of announcement. And if you look at the order book position, extremely strong order book position, about 24,200 crores as of last quarter. I think it's the fastest growing auto ancillary. I think the PAT CAGR expected is about 25% over the next 3 years. And it's just not auto ancillaries. They are also diversifying. I mean, they're already diversified into railway components, the brakes, and now they're talking of humanoid robo systems. I think that's the huge opportunity going ahead. So I think after the sort of a correction which you've seen in the past couple of weeks in Sona BLW, except for today's major move, I think even at the current levels, it makes a lot of sense.
Even at the current levels, it makes a lot of sense, is what you're saying. But Ruchit, your view also coming in on the technical front for Sona BLW. On the auto ang side, is that an interesting play? Or maybe, we could have some other names also coming in here.
So the risk reward ratio is favorable to take contra trades over here because the stock price has already seen a decent prior correction.
Ruchit, I believe you're on mute. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, so the risk reward ratio is quite favorable to take some contra trades over here, since we have already seen a price wise correction over the last few months. And even on the weekly charts, if I look a bit from a mid to long term perspective, then the stock has not breached its monthly 200-day moving average. So I think one can create fresh long positions over here. One can expect a gradual up move to come in over short to medium term.
All right, that's about Sona BLW. Let's move on. Let's talk about the big results that came in post-markets. Axis Bank out with its first quarter numbers. Gaurav is joining in, breaking down all the numbers for us. Gaurav, how do the numbers look?
Well, Axis Bank actually reported good set of numbers in terms of the top line because net interest income is fairly in line with what the street was expecting. The disappointment is basically coming up from the net interest margins front. They have actually contracted almost by 17 basis points versus the expectations of 10 to 12 basis point decline. Other than that, pre-provisional operating profit, there also we saw strong growth, and this was because of the strong fee income and non-interest income. That is the reason why we are seeing a sharp uptick, which was actually higher than what the street was expecting. But another disappointment came in terms of the asset quality. Now, when we look at credit cost, that has gone up sharply, and that is actually impacting the profitability. Profitability has declined almost by 4% on a year-on-year basis. Axis Bank has also said that there was a technical impact in this quarter of around 620 crore rupees, which has impacted the gross NPAs and net NPAs adversely. In fact, they have also said that the PAT impact is somewhere around 600 crore rupees because of this technical write-off. But apart from that, even if we exclude that, the gross NPAs have inched up almost to 1.4% versus what it was at 1.28%. That is also something that we need to be watchful about. So definitely on the back of the asset quality, we are seeing some disappointment, and as a result, profitability has declined, and as a result, we are also watching out on how the commentary is going to be from Axis Bank, given the weak set of numbers was what the bank has reported for first quarter.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Gaurav. Weak set of numbers coming in from Axis in terms of profitability. Ambareesh, your view coming in for Axis Bank, what are we watching out for? Issues coming in on profitability front. Provisions were expected to be higher as well, but this is significantly higher on a quarter-on-quarter basis. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think provisions is something which we'll have to wait for the management commentary on because that's much higher than what was expected. In fact, the numbers clearly were not expected to be this bad. So I think we should see a decent correction in Axis Bank.
All right, you expect to see a decent correction in Axis Bank. Ruchit, what are the charts suggesting?
That's a weak, relatively. If you look at the stock with and compare with the other large cap banking space, then you're not seeing any kind of significant outperformance coming in from the Axis Bank, and still there are no signs of a trended up move. So, we believe that this underperformance could continue in the near term. Within the large cap space, I think if one has to take any fresh bet in the banking space, then the PSU large cap SBI looks well poised for a good trended up move after a long consolidation phase of 6 months. So, in case of a fresh investment in the banking space, we prefer SBI more over other large cap stocks.
All right. Thank you, Ruchit, for that. We also had another big number that came in from the IT space post-market close, and that was Wipro. Rima joins in to tell us about Wipro. Rima, the IT pack hadn't been doing well all through this time. Does Wipro's number look any different?
Not really. It's not a big miss versus expectations, but it's muted nonetheless. So the dollar revenue has declined by about 0.4% on a sequential basis. Constant currency revenue growth is down 2% quarter on quarter. This is within the company's guided band of minus 1.5 to minus 3.5% for Q1 and in line with estimates. Margins have contracted by 20 basis points to 17.3%, again, largely in line with estimates. The company has also given a guidance for Q2, which is the main number that we look at, and the guidance stands at -1 to +1%, which again means that Q2 is going to be another muted quarter. Your base case is in Q2, the company does not grow, a 0% kind of growth. And this is on the back of, very muted growth for the last so many quarters. So this quarter, remember, we're talking about -2%. The quarter prior to that was -0.8%. Before that was no growth, 0.1, 0.6%. That constant currency trend chart should also come up. So all in all, basically in a nutshell, Wipro was a muted set of numbers, but in line with estimates. And the company for Q2 is guiding for -1 to +1. Where Wipro does well is on the deal wins. So deal wins are materially expanded. Total deal wins are closer to $5 billion, up 24% quarter on quarter, 50% up on a year-on-year basis. And even the large deal wins are very strong at $2.6 billion this time, a jump of, again, 50% on a sequential basis.
Okay, Rima, thank you so much for that. Muted quarter coming in for the company, guidance at -1% to 1% for Q2. Deal wins is where, it's a good show coming in there. But Ambareesh, your view for Wipro, in the IT pack, muted numbers this time as well, in line with estimates is what we're understanding. What are you watching out for now?
Yeah, but then, there's no growth. It may be in line with the estimates, but we have not really been seeing growth for a long time. So Wipro is one of those large caps IT stocks which I'll continue to ignore. Even when we see green shoots, like I said earlier, possibly we would be looking at something like a HCL Tech or a Infosys or a TCS, but not Wipro for the time being.
Not Wipro for the time being. That's the word coming in there. And muted set this time as well in Q1 FY26. Thank you so much, Ambareesh, as well as Ruchit, for joining in with us. On that note, we're going to actually slip into a very short break, viewers. And after the break, we'll get you the top corporate voices along with key market events to watch out for in tomorrow's trading session.
You're watching us here on Markets Forward, a show where we tell you about today's trading session, also prep you for tomorrow's trading session. The key corporate voices that we had on our channel today. First up, Ixigo. The stock was up nearly mid-teens. Management says growth was driven by focus on Middle India. The first-time flyer as well adds growth from airline and bus businesses were much faster than anticipated by the company itself. While there was some volatility in air travel, they are optimistic of over 40% cross-transaction value growth for the full year of FY26. They also commented about the train business, where the market share is more than 60% now from 58%. Hotel businesses witnessing strong month-on-month growth, and they do expect the growth to be beyond mid-single digits in the advertisement business.
Next up is Dixon Technologies. The company is set to acquire a stake in QTech and set up a JV with Chongqing Yuhai in the coming months. Now, commenting about the acquisition with QTech, India. The management says it will happen in the next few months, and that this partnership is set to increase the combined additional value and addition by 28%. Adds that the margins in mobile business will increase from 4% to 4.5% in FY27. It guides lighting business revenue to a rise to around 2,500 crore rupees in the next couple of years, with significance and signifying this deal as well. And before we wrap up this edition of Markets Forward on CNBC TV 18, let's go across to Ria, who's here to tell us which are the important events that we should be keeping an eye out on in tomorrow's trading session. Ria.
Well, yes, first up, in terms of economic data, we will be watching out for the Forex reserves data in India tomorrow. And for Japan, the CPI print comes out tomorrow as well. We have two global earnings that we'll be keeping an eye out on, American Express as well as 3M. In India also, we have a whole host of earnings coming up tomorrow. On the Nifty front, we have Reliance Industries and JSW Steel, and some others, including L&T Finance, Bandhan Bank and Hindustan Zinc as well, will be reporting their Q1 numbers tomorrow. Spandana Sphurti will also be holding a board meeting tomorrow to consider a fundraise, so watch out for that. Some other events to keep your eye out on: SpiceJet promoter dispute. The Supreme Court is going to hear the plea on the 18th of July. PM Modi will be visiting Bihar and West Bengal. The Japanese Prime Minister will meet US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent tomorrow. Another piece of news flow you should be keeping an eye out on: in the US, Musk faces a court deadline to answer SEC's lawsuit over the Twitter takeover. South Africa will host the G20 finance ministers and central bank governance meet tomorrow as well. And the EU General Affairs Council meeting is also scheduled for tomorrow.
All right, Ria, thanks a lot for that. With that, we'll wrap up on this edition of Markets Forward. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good evening. We'll be back with more updates and news on the other side. Keep watching CNBC TV 18.